Hey everybody, coming to you from my office in Shepherd Hall. And I know that chapter 2 of that Develops book is a little bit thick, and I do apologize for that. So what I want to do in this video is just focus on the aspects that I mainly want you to take from the chapter, which primarily has to do with understanding latent and manifest variables, what the difference between the two is, and what the connection between the two is. And as we talked about last week in class, when we study communication, we typically are interested in things that we cannot directly observe. And when we talk about a variable, typically the aspect we're talking about is the latent aspect of that variable. We define something that's latent as something that's underlying, meaning it's theoretical in nature. It is kind of hypothetical almost, like we know it exists based on our understanding of the world, but we can't actually sense it in any way, so we can't directly see it, taste it, smell it, etc. The latent variable then is the same thing as the construct we're interested in studying. So when we talk about our variables, independent, dependent, that kind of thing, typically what we're referring to is the latent variable, also referred to as the construct. So when you hear those two terms, just remember that basically those are going to mean the same thing. And although we know they exist, they remain pretty hidden to us because of their underlying attributes, because we can't directly access those things. So measures then serve as a way to tap into these underlying constructs. By clearly operationalizing the construct, that is making it measurable, which is what we started to do last week in class when we talked about the operational definition of something, is making it measurable. What we're doing then is creating a manifest variable that's associated with that latent variable. And because we can't actually assess the true actual level of a latent variable, we need those manifest variables, which come in the form of items on a survey, to tap into that latent construct. So the manifest is something it's real, it's actually concrete, it's something that we can tinker with, we can actually run statistics on that. The items on the survey represent the manifest variable for us because they're literally there on the paper. We can literally sit down, rank something on a scale from 1 to 7 on how much we like it or what our opinions are about it. So it's manifest for us in that sense. There needs to be a direct connection between the manifest items and the latent variable that we're actually trying to assess. So when we talked about some of the examples in class, like things like uncertainty, satisfaction with one's supervisor, or task interdependence, attraction, those kinds of things, those are all latent concepts, latent variables. And when we actually create items on a survey where we ask people to, rank the amount of uncertainty they had about somebody or the type or level of attraction that they had, those are going to be the manifest items relating to those constructs. So let me give you just a very extremely concrete example of what I'm talking about with latent and manifest dimensions, and then hopefully you can translate that over a little bit into the research realm that we're talking about. So my favorite TV show is Doctor Who. I love it, really, really, really love it, a lot. And to the point that my husband and I are actually building a TARDIS. That's this guy. It's the Doctor's time travel machine. We're building a full-sized one in our yard at home. Super nerdy, but super awesome. It's going to be bigger on the inside, and it's going to take us around time and space, which is pretty cool. And like I said, yeah, super addicted and obsessed with the show, which is something that I could tell you about, right? But you can't actually see my obsession with Doctor Who unless you look at the manifest indicators of that. So if you come to my office, for example, I have this guy, which I just showed you. You can see a variety of other TARDISes behind me on the wall. I have Doctor Who post-its. I have a keychain. I have a phone cover. Yeah, it's getting a little bit out of control. Although I have to say that most of these items were given to me as gifts by other people, so I did not actually purchase them. So I have posters on the wall. But anyway, the point is that all of these things, they're items that actually represent my degree of fondness and obsession with the show. So the items themselves, the post-its, etc., you can see these things, okay? We could measure them. And again, this is just a concrete example to show how the connection between the actual items and the underlying construct, or how much I like the show, are directly connected. So it's important because when we're talking about measuring elements of communication that we can't directly see, we've got to create survey items that really do a good job of representing the concept well, meaning that the item has to really directly correspond and correlate to the construct that we are interested in studying. So it's actually a lot more difficult than it sounds to write in a survey item and a bunch of items that are good representations of the construct. We'll talk more in class about why that is and how to work to overcome that. Additionally, because the concepts we're interested in are so multifaceted, they're complex, there are a lot of aspects of them. Just like in class we talked about attraction, and attraction, all of attraction is like a really big concept, right? So you have to break it down into various parts of attraction. You have physical attraction, you have emotional attraction, those different elements that we talked about. And within any of those specific elements, you're still going to have a variety of things that could represent or serve as indicators of that aspect of attraction, which means that we can't use just one item. Like we can't just ask somebody to rank, how attracted do you feel to this other person, because it doesn't tap into the entirety of that construct. So the best that we can do is try to really define well what we mean by the construct. That's where the operational definition comes in, and then use a variety of items, multiple items on a survey to try to tap into that as completely as possible. And what that means is that, like if I have 5 items that all measure uncertainty, for example, they're all going to say relatively the same thing with slight variations on the wording and whatnot. Those items should all be correlated with each other. They're correlated because they're all measuring the same construct. If they're not correlated with each other, that's a problem, because either A, the items themselves are poor indicators of that construct, they're poorly written, they're confusing the respondents in some way, or we haven't done a good job of defining what we mean by uncertainty or attraction or whatever concept that we're trying to measure there. And we're going to talk more in class about how to be really clear and accurate with item wording and things like that, so that we can create a survey, a set of items that is going to be the most ideal or best representation of that construct by utilizing clear indicators or clear manifest aspects of the latent construct. And strictly speaking, we want all items, so if we had 5 items measuring attraction, we want all of those items to be what's called parallel, meaning that they all measure that aspect of attraction with the same degree of precision. That almost never happens when we're doing communication research, because what we're studying is so complex and it can be so abstract. It's very difficult to create items that are all equal in the way that they represent the concept, which means that we typically are going to accept what we refer to as a congeneric model. Talks about that a little bit in the chapter. And what that means is that each of those items, 5 items, all representing aspects of attraction, all tap into attraction. They're going to do it with a varying degree of precision, meaning item 1 might be the strongest indicator of precision. Item 2 is fairly good. Items 3 and 4 are good, but they don't all measure it exactly equally. And we can talk more about that in class, as well as what that, in terms of what that means for validity and reliability of our measures and things like that. So I know this is exciting stuff, and you're very anxious to get to work on your survey. So we are going to spend some time in class this week working with your groups to continue just narrowing down your topic, operationalizing your variables, and then starting to draft some survey items. So you'll be spending the next couple of weeks working on that, and we'll talk about it more as we move into reliability and validity and those kinds of things later on in the week. So for now, hopefully we won't get attacked by killer insects in class again. And until then, just stay classy, Speechcom, and you should definitely check out Doctor Who if you haven't watched it, because it's pretty much the best show ever. I'll see you guys soon.